What does recent history tell us about quarterbacks in the draft? We'll go full Scooby-Doo with what to expect this week with this week's draft. It's finally here. We've got all that more. I'm Jason Fitz, and it's time for Zero Blitz. Welcome to Zero Blitz. He's Frank Schwab. I'm Jason Fitz. It's Zero Blitz with Frank and Fitz. And frankly, it's draft week. I am beyond, I am at a level, Frank, you're used to working with me. We're buddies. We hang out. You know my usual level. I live this whole week as shot in a drink level. I'm just telling you, everywhere I walk in, there is no, we're going to ease into this. Every single thing I'm doing this week. I did a dry try for Orange Theory yesterday where I had to row 2,000 meters and then run 5K and do all this stuff. I'm in that, this is me to the 100th degree at this point because I am just that excited already. I got my no-no saying yes, my toes are dancing. It's draft week, brother, and I'm very excited.
I like your enthusiasm for it. As we've kind of touched on, not as big of a draft guy as you. I'll enjoy covering it, writing all the storylines, talking about the storylines, but I'm more excited about things like Dame Lillard scoring 35 in the first half, or watching NBA, NHL, all that.
Are you in on? Wait. Are you in on the Bucks right now?
No, I'm trying. I thought the Pacers were going to beat them in this series. I'm trying. You get it right. You're like, okay, this isn't going to work. The Celtics are going to beat the Bucks, even if they get out of the first round, whatever. But then they have a game like last night, and you're like, wait, maybe they were just playing possum, and Giannis is going to get healthy. That's how you do with your teams, right? This is just how it works. You talk yourself into it, and then they're going to let me down probably before too long.
The Bucks spent most of the season treating the word defense like most parents make their kids treat the F word when they're 10 years old. There was no mention of it. Nobody could say it. You couldn't didn't even acknowledge that they heard about it from other places, right? The Bucks and defense didn't really go hand in hand. But man, I'm excited for you, buddy. I'm excited. And look, where are we? So where's your loyalty lie in the NHL? Because I admit my fraudulence. I am a Golden Knights fan, obviously, as you're well aware, because I support everything from Vegas. But also, I went to the first ever Preds game. I was the band between periods for years. I have a lot of love. So I have two teams, and that's not allowed. I understand that makes me fraudulent. I cannot help the fact that both the Preds and the Golden Knights in the same conference are the two teams I root for. So it makes the Stanley Cup playoff run a little bit easier for me.
You talked your way through it pretty well. I mean, how could you have known that Vegas was going to get an NHL expansion team, right?
And then you can't just quit after there's right, no way
you're invested in the Preds. Yeah, I get that. I totally. It's Anaheim for me. No Wisconsin NHL team, obviously, which has always been a little strange to me, but I had to get it a small market. Obviously, I went to high school in Anaheim when the team was there. Went to high school at Tiger Woods. I think you know that by now. Mm-hmm. Anaheim Western represent. So yes, Anaheim Ducks 2007 Stanley Cup champions, and we won't talk about what they've done for the last 3, 4, 5, however many years they've been terrible, but I could always relive that Stanley Cup championship.
I will not even comfortably discuss the amount of money I spent last year on Golden Knights Stanley Cup gear.
Oh,
I got it all.
I still think I'm paying off bills from the 2021 Bucks, right? I mean, you're just
I got the little Stanley Cup that's filled with the ice from the actual Stanley Cup final. Oh God, yeah, no. If they made it, I bought it. If the Raiders ever in my lifetime win a Super Bowl, just. I'm sorry. I'll just sell the house.
Start a GoFundMe right now. Come on.
Oh, speaking of the Raiders, by the way, that takes us back to draft. I do want to make sure you guys are aware. We are doing a couple of things that are incredible for Yahoo for the draft, and we usually don't bog you down. I can honestly say in all the times that I've done a podcast with Yahoo Sports, I've never looked directly in the camera and say, man, I would really appreciate it if you would listen to. I will tell everybody out there, we are doing some draft shows that we're going to be really proud of Thursday and Friday. They'll be available on Yahoo Sports YouTube, on Twitter, on Facebook. It's a second screen experience. We're not trying to deny the fact that you're watching the draft like we will be. We're going to be live watching it with you, but we're going to give you our analysis and we're going to give you different spins on it. We're going to give you immediate reaction from the fantasy football standpoint, which is really cool. We're also going to have some rivals representation. So we're going to do this cool thing called Rivals Rewind. Take a look at where players were in high school, how they got to where they are right now, which is really cool. And go out there. If you're not already in the Yahoo Sports app and you're an iPhone user, go get it, because for iPhone users, we're doing this emoji thing where you'll be able to immediately assign an emoji to every pick in the draft. Not only will you be able to do that, you'll see how everybody else is assigned emojis, how anybody that's identified that team as one of their favorites has graded that draft pick, and you'll be able to see how some of us, the experts at Yahoo Sports, have graded it all in real time. So be sure you're hanging out with the second screen. Just pick up your phone, pick up your laptop, whatever, open up YouTube, go to Yahoo Sports, watch us hang out for the draft, but also interact with us in the app. I'm really proud of what we're doing. It's going to be pretty awesome. And then we're immediately going to do pods right after. So me and C-Rob, with my special guest there, we're going to do a little bit of pod action right after the show. So I want to make sure everybody knows that. And I'll tell you, like, honestly, we're so proud of it. It's a new venture for us. Every view, every listen counts. So go out there and give us check it out for a minute. Frank, watch the whole thing and critique it as we go.
Great stuff. I like it. I'm looking forward to keeping that on my screen too. Now, let me ask you, because we do have you can rate the draft picks, especially with our favorite team with the emojis. You're probably the kind of guy like everybody else. Even if you don't like the pick, you talk yourself into it right away, right? With your favorite team, you're like, Clelin Ferrell, yes, that's going to work out tremendously. He's going to be the next Reggie White. Are you that kind of guy? Or are you like, oh my God, I hate that draft pick, I'm never buying in? I assume you're the type of guy who just talked yourself into it.
No. Like I remember where I was when Sebastian Janikowski was drafted, when Darius Hayward-Bay was drafted, when
you didn't
Michael
like
Huff was all of these like overreaches, but I've told this story before, but I remember sitting on camera on ESPN the year that Alex Leatherwood was picked, and I covered all 7 rounds of the draft. There was only one time during that entire broadcast that my producer got my ear and said, "You got to stall. We don't have any B-roll. We didn't know this guy was going to be taken." And it was when Alex Leatherwood was selected. So I just looked directly in the camera and I said, "Why do y'all do this to me? Like, Raiders, why do you do this to me every year? You know I'm in front of a camera. Why do you make me do this?" The next day I walk in, ESPN.com's Raiders page, the front headline, "Fitz pleads with Raiders." No, I don't talk myself into any of this at this point. Like, I don't even know I don't know what to think. If the Raiders take a quarterback, I will talk myself into that because I have no choice. That's going to be the future. Other than that, man, I don't know. Like, I'm going to ask you today in this show what the hell I should be rooting for, because I don't know. For you, like, what's it like when your team's always really good and always in Super Bowl? Like, you don't even know what the pain of the draft is, Frank.
I will tell a quick draft story. So, 1998 NBA draft, I'm sitting, like, not that I'm an NBA draft expert, but I did know that this guy from Kansas named Paul Pierce was really, really good. And when he fell to the Bucks pick, I'm pumping my fists. I'm like, we're getting Paul Pierce. This is going to happen. And then the Bucks pass on him to draft this guy from Germany I've never heard of called Dirk Nowitzki. And I'm like, well, I've never heard of him. He can't be any good. This is before we really know about European players, right? And then they're like, no, there's been a trade made. The Bucks have traded the rights to Dirk Nowitzki to Dallas for Michigan center Robert Tractor Traylor. And I'm like, oh, okay, that might work out, but I'm still mad that they didn't get Pierce. But anyway, yes, in that draft, the Milwaukee Bucks passed on Paul Pierce, gave away Dirk Nowitzki to get Robert Tractor Traylor. That kind of sums up the pain of the draft for basically all fans have a story like that, right? Like, if you're a fan of any team, you have the guy you wanted them to take, they didn't. The draft bust, the trade they made that was awful. The draft is just pain. Because there's so many more misses than hits, and this kind of teases we talked about the last week. Our snake draft will be biggest draft bust ever. Some people are gonna have to avert their eyes with some of these fan bases, but yes, the draft, there's more misses than hits in the draft, and the big misses, it just kills you for it. Just forever.
Yeah, and by the way, it's Frank's week to pick first in the snake draft at the end, and I don't give a damn because I'm taking the first pick, and we all know who it's going to be. All right, before we get into the rest of the NFL news, Frank, can I pull up the soapbox? Can I go off on something?
No, hey, you're fired up, man. Why not? I mean, you got enough energy. However many energy drinks you had this morning, I fear for you, sir.
Well, hey, my body's a temple right now. I'm taking care of myself. Okay.
Oh yeah.
I am a former season ticket holder for the Arena Football League, right? Like, and good season tickets. I was a Nashville Cats season ticket holder. I have watched every iteration of the Arena Football League they've ever made. I am the target audience of the Arena Football League. So it pains me to say, how could you be so stupid that you would decide you should open the new iteration of the Arena Football League, all new, coming back with all of these teams all over the country, and it opens this weekend. I literally looked at it a couple weeks ago because I was like, oh, I'm going to get season tickets to the Nashville Cats again. Like, I'm going to support something I want to support. And I look and see that they're opening the entire season on the weekend of the NFL draft. And even if you want to say, well, it's day 3 of the NFL draft, it's also the weekend of the NBA playoffs, the Stanley Cup playoff. Like, you've had all this time to get ready to launch a league, and you launch it at a time where it's absolutely impossible for anyone to care. Like, as the Arena Football League audience, I'm looking at this and saying, this is a level of stupid you can't fix. And if this is how you launch your new version of the Arena Football League, why will I have any faith that it's actually going to make it? Because this, Frank, is just dumb.
Not the best decision, I guess. Yes, I always wonder about these leagues. Do you just not worry about your competition? The NHL is kind of notorious for this, where it's just like, whatever. We don't care. And maybe that's okay for the niche fans. Maybe it's okay for the niche fans of arena football, but you're still crossover football fans. People are going to be into the Tennessee Titans draft day 3 even. So I'm kind of with you here. I did not expect to have an Arena Football League discussion today. Fun league, though. I like the iteration of the Arena Football League. Colorado Crush, really, really fun games. Elway owned them. It was great. I'm with you that, yes, they probably could have planned this thing a little bit better.
Yeah, I've got the original Nashville Cats Tim McGraw jersey somewhere in my house. I was going to whip it out. Put it back on. No, I don't know.
Grinding film on 6th-round tight ends who went to Central Connecticut State or whatever. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Go Blue Demons. All right. So now let's get to some actual NFL. It's great that I came right in with the Central Connecticut mascot.
I'm impressed.
You and I, by the way, we share something as we get into the NFL news and notes. We share a dislike for new unis, and I didn't think we were going to have to talk about this today, but the Broncos this morning put out their new uniforms. So I was all ready because, Stone, producer extraordinaire, had it as his backdrop when I connected. I'm like, we're going to have some uniform talk. Only then to be shooketh by the fact that you logged on and you're like, I really. So you're not passionate about this, Frank?
My only passion is the Broncos had the worst uniforms in the NFL, by proxy, maybe the worst uniforms in sports the past 28 years, whatever it's been since they broke about in 1997. Math isn't my strong suit here, Fitz. So I'm all okay with it just because they're an upgrade, because anything was an upgrade. Everybody's just killing the Broncos for these uniforms, but that's kind of what we do. Anytime somebody comes out with a new mascot or a new uniform, it's very rare to get a consensus. Yes, that's really, really slick. The Jets actually kind of pulled that off, though. Everybody seemed to like the Jets ones because they just went back to the 1980s, which is what the Broncos should have done. And they do have a throwback that I really do like. But go back to the 1984 Broncos uniforms. Just wear those full time. I'm good with that. What they did is fine. I'm in a rare position where I just like that's fine. I'm not as mad as everybody. I'm not fired up about them. They're just fine. They're okay. And then the throwbacks are just fire. They're just amazing.
Here's what I hate. I don't hate the uniforms. I'm a beacon of darkness today. I love this. Like, I'm the bad guy today. I'm on my heel turn right now in 80s wrestling. I don't like them. I don't hate them. I like the white helmets, by the way. I like the white. I like a solid white helmet. I think that's a cool look. I will say this. So one show that I was lucky enough to help originate at ESPN a long time ago was SportsCenter on Snapchat. And we learned quickly on SportsCenter on Snapchat that every episode, this is actual demographics and numbers we studied, you have about 3 seconds. And you have 3 seconds to either get to click or not get to click on the buy-in on SportsCenter on Snap. So you can't sit there and say, I've got a thought about, you got to come right in and be like, the Bucs suck on defense. Yes, yeah. Like you got to say it, and then you go from it. And so I learned a lot in that process. I thought about that today when I was watching the Broncos video release. Like that thing, like it's the War and Peace of video releases. Like I found halfway through, I was like, I'm out. By the way, look it up, kids. War and Peace is a very long book. Like I eventually just turned the video off and went to Twitter and was like, somebody show me a picture of the damn things. I don't want to watch the Bronco driving through the county anymore. Like I don't need the dirty Western scene leading up to the release. Just show me the damn jerseys. That was my problem with it. By the time I got to it, I was like, man, the hype wasn't worth the wait for the video. I'm out on that. Just shorten the video next time, Bronco Nation. Like it just make it like jersey. Boom, put the jerseys at the top and then give me the exploration movie if you want later. But I didn't need all that hype.
Here's what I want. I want the NFL to somehow schedule a draft every week so you have this much energy every single week. Because you're off the rails today, man. You are fired up and I love it. This is what it's like draft week with Fitz. I can't. Whoo-wee. All right, let's get to it. You're going to be like, what do you like by Thursday? Like,
oh man,
you must be like beside yourself. Goodness.
Oh man, it's my favorite event to do every year. Here's the thing you got to really worry about, because you know me, I got the bladder of a child and I drink a lot of fluids. I got to stop that a couple of days before, right? Because there's no breaks. Like again, when you check us out on YouTube, like we don't have commercials, so we're hanging out with you the whole time, which means, if it's a 6-hour first round, there's no tinkle time for me during those 6 hours. So like, I just gotta hunker down and figure it out. So, take a couple energy drinks in with me so I can make sure I keep the energy up. And then outside of that, man, you just make it through. But there is one draft tradition, and you should try this. Like every year for me, at the end of the NFL draft, I go somewhere and I order every dessert on the menu, every one of them, and I house them.
I hope it's not like Cheesecake Factory, because they got like 18 million.
Okay,
desserts,
I try to be smart about that. It was a couple of years ago. It was Fleming's, like the steakhouse, and so it was creme brulee, key lime pie, cheesecake, lemon cake, brownie sundae.
Wait. Do you go to Fleming's and eat a meal and then get all the desserts?
I just sit at the bar.
I was going to be like, if you pounded down a porterhouse or something and then ordered like 7 desserts, I might send out a search party for you, like an intervention or something.
No, I don't want to fill my stomach with any of that. No. I just want cake. I want all of the cake. So, I'm going to make it through Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then Saturday night somewhere, or Sunday, I'm going to go somewhere as hungry as I could possibly be, and I'm going to see how many full desserts I can eat. That's how a grown man celebrates the draft. All right. So I thought we could get ready for the draft a little bit differently, and this will be an interesting exercise. The concept here is simple, right? Like, think about what we're expecting in this year's draft. And we all expect at this point, quarterbacks are going to go 1, 2, 3. I still expect quarterbacks are going to go 1, 2, 3, and 4. So it really becomes this exercise in quarterbacks. Now, that being said, we decided we'd take a look back and maybe grade some of the quarterbacks from the first round over the last few drafts, because everybody, I don't care if you're a Patriots fan, I don't care if you're a Giants fan that trades up, a Vikings, Raiders, Broncos fan, if you're Washington, if you're Chicago, you are convinced you are about to draft your savior. But I'm not as convinced saviors are that readily available. So let's go back. We'll go back to like 2018. So we're going 2018 to now and figure out, we'll give these guys a grade from the first round. So Baker Mayfield. Now, Baker Mayfield was the first overall pick in 2018. So that's why he's the first one to mention. But he's also one of the toughest to grade, because he's had some good moments. He's had some really bad moments. He's had multiple teams be like, "No, we're good. We'll let you leave." And then he had a great season with Tampa Bay. And now he's getting get paid on this like Geno Smith sort of world to prove it back. So when I say letter grade for Baker in his career, what do you assign it?
That's what I was going to ask you, Professor Fitz, because if you're grading me here on the curve, I don't want to fail out right away. We're talking about his career. Like, we're not talking about with the Browns. We're not assigning a grade to the Browns for the pick. We're just talking about Baker Mayfield.
We should, though. You're right. No,
because if we're just saying Baker Mayfield Browns pick, it's got to be like a D, because although they did get a good rookie season out of it, very good. He set some records rookie season. They did have the playoff season. I believe it was the second year, maybe his third. That's fine, but ultimately, like, you didn't really get that much out of Baker Mayfield, and they pretty much gave you away. They paid you to go away to Carolina. So if we're Baker Mayfield overall, probably like a C minus. But with the Browns, probably a D, because he didn't get them off of this quarterback carousel. And if he would have, they would have avoided the Deshaun Watson mistake, which is just a different thing altogether. So I got to go a D, right? You can't go much higher than that.
I think you're right. And we should only be judging it based on the team for this exercise, based on the team that actually drafted him, because that's the team that, like, that's really the context of this conversation. And I think D probably feels about right. So you're talking about first overall. You could talk me into a C. Like, he was okay, but it feels more like, especially with the first overall pick, we're talking somewhere in that D range. So even if we split the difference and say C minus is still dreadful, right? So the next quarterback in 2018 was Sam Darnold, who, again, we're just judging Sam Darnold with his drafting team. That's an F, right? That failed. It failed miserably.
Yeah, he hasn't turned it around with any other team either, so it's still an F, yes. And I mean...
Well, I feel like every year they're like, oh, well, Sam Darnold could turn in here and be a capable starter.
It's like Sam Bradford. Like, come on. Like, don't get me on the Sam Bradford kick, because Sam Bradford has become this god to some people. If I bring up the Sam Bradford really wasn't that good, I will be in a Twitter fight for the rest of the week. Like, I don't know where the Sam Bradford stands come from. He was just a very below average quarterback. Oh, the knees. Yeah, I get it. Whatever. Anyway, Sam Darnold. Here's the problem with writing things on draft night or talking on YouTube all night on draft night like you'll do. You have to have an opinion right away, right? And I basically crushed the Giants for drafting Saquon Barkley because you don't draft running back second. I'll stand by that. But it was why did you draft Sam Darnold? He should have. Yeah, that didn't age very well. No. So, but anyway,
okay.
Yeah, it's an F. This is easy. Like just put the red F on the paper and give it back. Yeah.
This is a deep dive. We would need producer Stone's help with this. This is a deep dive future topic. I want to grade the graders over a 10-year period. Like, I want to grade Mel Kiper's grading and then see how well he did or didn't do in this process. All right. So Josh Allen, I give Josh Allen an A+. I mean,
A+. That's what you pray for. When you're drafting anywhere outside of number one, basically, you are hoping that a guy like Josh Allen falls to you. I mean, the Broncos passed on Josh Allen for Bradley Chubb. I hear about that all the time. I'm based in Colorado, as people know, all the time from my Broncos fans, friends of, he's right there in Wyoming. John Elway likes tall quarterbacks. Like, he had this huge arm. Why in the heck didn't the Broncos draft this guy? But we do forget there were questions, a lot of questions about Josh Allen's accuracy and all that. We didn't know he was this kind of a runner coming out of Wyoming. He's become a real dual threat guy. But A+, like, this is one of the absolute steals of the NFL draft.
Josh Rosen gets an F. There's no doubt about that. And Lamar Jackson.
One of them, like, we'll talk about where he's on a short list. We might. I don't want to give away my draft strategy later, but yeah, I mean, when you're trading a guy and drafting somebody else a year after you draft a quarterback number 10, that is the epitome of a disastrous pick.
So for me, if you're a two-time MVP, you're also an A+. Like, I give Lamar. Okay, all right. So I think we both agree. And part of this, like, look, I can already hear people typing on their tweets to tell us both that we're idiots, but because they don't have Super Bowls. Again, wins and losses are not a quarterback stat, and Super Bowls can't be the only way we judge a quarterback. If you have Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson as your quarterback right now, every year you know that you have a chance at the playoffs, you have a chance of proximity, no matter what, you have the guy. So, like, to me, that's why they're both A+.
You look back, I wrote this tonight, Lamar Jackson won his second MVP. Every single multiple MVP winner in NFL history has gone to the Hall of Fame. Lamar Jackson's going to Hall of Fame too. If you draft a Hall of Fame quarterback, number 32, Ozzie Newsome, his last first-round pick with the Ravens, just a brilliant move for him to trade up to 32, draft Lamar Jackson, win the nonsense of, he should play receiver. I know that, we're just taking one take and holding on to it for 6 years or whatever, but it's just ludicrous because Lamar Jackson's likely going to the Hall of Fame. You can argue with me if you want, but look at every multiple NFL MVP in history. It is a list of the legends and titans in the sport, and Lamar Jackson's going to Hall of Fame someday.
So just a point of reference here. 2018, we had 2 A+, 2 Fs, and a C-. Just
very tepid C. Could be a D, yeah.
Yeah, it could be a D. Could be a D. So 2019, Kyler Murray is the first quarterback selected. Kyler Murray, this one's a little interesting to me because he got a big deal, so they like him, and he's still the quarterback there. So, like, I don't know. I struggle to think. I don't think of Kyler Murray as being this huge game breaker. To me, if you're talking about a first overall pick quarterback, like, it feels like maybe a C+, maybe, but they must view him better than that because they got that money out of him. But we just haven't seen that rate of return. So I say C+. Where are you on him?
Exactly what I was going to say. C+, a little bit above average. I'm a tough grader sometimes. So C to me is average. He's been above average. I don't think he's lived up to that contract. The Cardinals haven't done much with him as far as team success. C+ seems about right. You could talk me into a B- maybe, but I'm not the biggest Kyler fan in the world.
All right. So then Daniel Jones, I'll never forget. We were in Nashville. Mina Kimes was standing up waiting for the Daniel Jones pick to be made. It was red, and she started laughing so hard she fell over, landed in my lap, went viral from ESPN that year for the draft coverage, all because everybody was shocked that Daniel Jones was actually not just a smokescreen and was actually picked there. I say that because I feel like that was sort of some people's reaction last year when he got the mega money. And now we're sitting here saying, well, it wasn't really mega money. They can get out of the contract. Like, all of this screams to me to sort of somewhere in the level of mediocrity. Like, for me, if we're sitting here saying that the Giants should trade up and take a different quarterback, then that tells me you didn't hit on the pick. So I can't give him higher than a C. And a C just kind of feels like that might even be generous. Where are you on Daniel Jones?
Yeah, I'd say C-, a little below average. I mean, he had the one good year that got him paid. Good for him. That kind of fell apart last year, and then he got hurt, which isn't his fault. He's had some moments. He's been okay. You could talk me into a C. I'll probably end up going C minus, because when you're this, early on in a guy's career and you're already talking about drafting somebody else, it didn't work out as you planned. C minus.
I have just downgraded Baker Mayfield to a D because you talked me into it. If Daniel Jones is a C minus, that's a little better than Baker. So yeah, I'll give you that. Dwayne Haskins, very difficult conversation to have here, obviously, yes, and want to be very, very aware of that. If we are just looking at his career, I think we have to separate some things here and understand that he was drafted by Washington, and Washington had already moved on from him by the time his tragic passing occurred, right? So there is some element in my mind where, again, being very sensitive to the fact that some things are larger than football. If I have to give this draft pick for Washington a grade based just on the time that he was with Washington, it's an F. But I also understand that I'm doing that with a ton of care and precaution to how we say any of that. Does that make sense?
Yeah, correct. Absolutely. From all accounts, a pretty good guy. It just didn't work out for him at Washington as far as NFL career goes. So yeah, that's a grade you have to give him, with obviously tragic. It was so sad. When he passed, that accident that they had there. So yes, rest in peace, Dwayne Haskins. But yeah, if we're doing this exercise, you have to give Washington an F for the pick.
All right, so then 2020 becomes, this is the draft everybody wants. Everybody thinks that 2020 is what's going to be emulated. Could end up being one of the greatest quarterback drafts of all time. Joe Burrow gets an A, right? I will ask you, because I believe Joe Burrow might be the second best quarterback in the NFL. But I also think it's fair to say you might be the second best quarterback in the NFL. And at this point, there are injury issues. And that can be a true statement without it being anybody's fault. Sometimes people are just accidentally injury prone. Sometimes people's musculature and tendons are more prone to some injuries. And sometimes things just happen. I think the fact that every year it feels like there's a conversation about injury around Joe Burrow is a reason that I'm concerned. But also, I think he's the second best quarterback in the NFL right now.
He's in a conversation. The injuries have been unfortunate, but they also were a fourth down stop away from winning a Super Bowl with him. The Cincinnati Bengals that we're talking about. He's transferring that franchise. It's easy. It's an A for sure.
All right. So then where do we land on Tua?
These next two guys are going to be really interesting. I'm interested to see your grades.
Tua to me is, so again, injuries were part of this conversation, but also just this, can I oversimplify for a second? When I think great quarterbacks, I think when you look at the schedule, do you think, oh man, we got to take on that guy? Like when the schedule game is played and the schedule is put out this year and you see somebody has to go to Buffalo to take on Josh Allen, I don't care if the Bills stink. You're still like, I don't know, Josh Allen. I don't sit there and say that about Tua. I think he's very good. I think he's in the quarterback class of, hey, he's good, but he feels sort of like a B draft pick to me. Is that fair?
I wish I disagreed with you. B sounds good. Here's a guy who I think we dunk on Tua way too much. I don't know why he can't get his credit. It's almost like the Brock Purdy thing, except a different draft slot. Tua led the NFL in passing yards last year and had a 101 rating. What more do you want from a guy? He does exactly what they want in that offense. And he's got Tyreek Hill to throw the ball to. So did Patrick Mahomes. We didn't hold that against him. I think Tua is very good. I do there is part of me that says maybe you shouldn't pay him because you could just develop another Tua. But yeah, B above average. He gets no credit for what he's done, and he's been a pretty good quarterback.
So then where are you on Justin Herbert, who society gives an A+ to everything? I feel like the fan club of Justin Herbert is very real, but we haven't seen that necessarily result in epic moments for Justin Herbert the same way. I think Justin Herbert is, we always talk about the well shelves. He's top shelf. He belongs on that King Louis shelf to me. He's an unaffordable, oh my God, you got a guy. I think he's an A, but I also am willing to admit that if you look at some of the numbers, I understand why there are people out there that like to give it a little bit of doubt. But Justin Herbert, to me, at a draft pick from 2020, there were questions for him coming in out of the draft. People weren't sure if the Oregon success was legit. I think the Chargers absolutely nailed the pick and it changed their franchise. So I give it an A.
I can't get there because throughout my 20 plus years covering the NFL, there's only been one quarterback who's not judged on his team's success. So that's Justin Herbert. I don't get it. I don't, every other guy, we sit here and talk about Dak Prescott like he's trash and the Cowboys should cut him tomorrow. Why does Justin Herbert get a pass when Dak Prescott doesn't? Why does Justin Herbert get a pass when Kirk Cousins doesn't? the Chargers have had no success with Justin Herbert. You look at his fourth down numbers in the clutch, and they're bad. Like they're legitimately bad. I like Justin Herbert's talent. We watch him make the great throws and all that. And the whole like the social media quarterback thing has been laughed at and all that. But it's kind of a little bit true too, where we look at the highlights, we're like, oh my God, Justin Herbert. And we just, they haven't won anything. And he's below 500 in his career. And that doesn't matter. I'm not a quarterback wins guy. You know that. But I'm just saying, Justin Herbert has been judged differently than every single other quarterback in my 24 years covering the NFL, and I don't know why. I give him a B. I think he can get to an A, but he's not there yet like we want him to be. I think he's good. I don't think he's great. Like people talk about this guy like he's great, and he's been good. And I'm not saying he should get traded tomorrow or anything, but I'm just fascinated by now that Justin Herbert is just held to a different standard than everybody else. Like I said, Dak Prescott has to be looking at Justin Herbert going, why does he get a pass for everything? He never gets criticized for anything. I get all the criticism when I take my team to an NFC East title and lose a playoff game and people act like I'm trash. I don't get why Justin Herbert's on scholarship his whole career. I'm just going to answer your question. I'm scared to be anti-Justin Herbert. I am. Sure, I get it. I totally get it. I totally get it. I'm scared. He could win MVP this year. He's got that talent. I give you that.
Well, and every single person, like there are certain people, shouldn't say every single. There are certain people in this business that I think do such a good job breaking down quarterbacks. And then every single time I see them talk about Justin Herbert, they glow. There's just like this moment of, but you're right. Like if I'm being 100% honest, the very thing I said earlier, like, do I look at the schedule and say, like, I look at the schedule every year as a Raiders fan and I say, man, Mahomes, like that's just 2 losses. It's 2 L's. If you get lucky, you can steal one from Kansas City. It's 2 L's. I have never felt that way about the Chargers. Like there was not a part of the Chargers, and the Chargers, I realize as an organization, that's a lot of it. But man, like you would think usually as a fan of a team with a secondary going into the draft that's questionable, I am that. I would be sitting here saying, man, you need every corner imaginable if you're ever going to take on Justin Herbert long term. I don't feel that way. Like Justin, you're right. Everything you said makes sense. But I hear all of the positives about Justin Herbert, and I almost feel scared. I could get into my little my hole over here, and I'm like, well, I think he's okay, but like everybody else says he's great, so I have to think he's. You're right. Like you're right. I'm admitting my cowardice. I'm admitting that I'm a coward when it comes to trashing Justin. Not even trashing, to questioning Justin Herbert.
Yes, and I feel like I'm going too far because he could have a 50 touchdown season this year, and I'm like, oh yeah, well those takes didn't age that well. I'm just curious why Justin Herbert's just he's on a different plan than every other quarterback in the NFL who were like, yeah, the numbers, but he didn't win in a playoff, so screw him, he stinks. Like Justin Herbert's highlight in his career is playing in a playoff game where they lost a 27-point lead. Like that's literally the high point in his career right now. Okay, all right, well, I give him a B, Fitz, not an A.
I mean, that is what's interesting. So I'm looking back at it last year. And if I just give you some of these, 65% completion percentage last year, it looks like 20 touchdowns, 7 picks, 3,100 yards. Those are all very good numbers. 13 games played. Those are all very good numbers. But you're right. They aren't some, oh my God, how in the hell are you ever going to beat him? Like, what are you ever going to do to be able to take him on? Like,
pause the podcast for 1 minute, go to Pro Football Reference, look up Dak Prescott's stats, write them down, go to Justin Herbert's Pro Football Reference page, write those stats right underneath, do the blind test. You will be shocked. You will be absolutely positively shocked that one of these guys gets trashed 24/7 and the other guy's held up to be like a future gold jacket guy after 4 years.
All right, so what are we going to compromise on a B for Justin Herbert? Because I still believe he's the franchise.
I do too. And I don't think you take back that pick if you're the Chargers for all, but I think he'd get there, but he's just not there already. Whatever you want. We want to go B plus, A minus? No,
I'll go B. I'll go B because now I'm sitting here thinking, look, if you had the choice, let me ask you this, Frank. If you had the choice today, starting a franchise fresh, contracts aren't an issue, and I come to you and I say, Frank Schwab, I'm giving you the option. You can choose Joe Burrow or you can choose Justin Herbert. Who are you taking?
Burrow, easy.
So am I. And now, if I come to you and I say, Frank, I'm going to let you have Josh Allen or I'm going to let you have Justin Herbert. Who are you taking?
Allen, easy.
And if I say the same thing, Lamar or Justin Herbert, who are you taking?
Oh, easy, Lamar. Yeah.
So that puts him in the category of the Bs. Like, I think he's better. I'd rather have Justin Herbert than Tua, and they're both Bs on our scale so far. But if we're talking about shelves, you're right. Look at that. Look at that. We've come to a consensus. So now what do we do with this historic draft with Jordan Love, who we have 1 year of proof of concept on? And I won't even say 1 year. I would say that we have like half of a season of proof of concept.
Right.
Like we're doing naked cartwheels in the street over just Jordan Love, over really what comes down to the season post Monday Night Football. Because as we've talked about before, Monday night against the Raiders did not look good. After that, it's like everything cleaned up. The light went off. All of a sudden, Jordan Love looks like they've got it. They look like he has the future. He looks like he can be a top-level quarterback. But I have a hard time giving him the same level of grade I'm giving Herbert or Tua when those two guys have done it at a far longer, higher level than Jordan Love did it for a handful of games.
Right. I'd probably go B- with the, we might be sitting here in 6 months saying it's a clear A. Like if the Packers nailed this pick, like it looks like they might have, yeah, it's an A. I mean, to get him out of the 2026 spot, I believe it was, and just to continue on this seemingly never ending loop of great quarterback play, Bears fans have to be so angry about this. It's a B- for now, because it is really just one good half season. But boy, did he look good by the end. He did. There's no doubt about it. A B- for now with the ability to go. He could cruise past, given the draft capital, he could cruise past Tua and he could cruise past Herbert too. I'll say that. I will look and say, by the end of this season, could we be in a situation where we say, Jordan Love at 26 or Justin Herbert at 6? I'm taking Jordan Love every day. Yeah, we could be saying that in a few months.
I feel like right now, B- feels fair. I would say, as much as you're right, by the end of this season, he might find himself the second in this vaunted draft class. By the end of this season, we could also find out that the last half of last year was just a mirage, and the Packers are in a much different situation than they think they're in. So there's a lot of prove it left ahead. And for all of that conversation from 2020, we still ended up with 1A and 3 versions of some sort of a B. So let's see where that goes. Because in 2021, we started with Trevor Lawrence, and Trevor Lawrence was supposed to be the can't miss. He's supposed to be the A+. Trevor Lawrence is supposed to be the absolute, oh my God, I got my guy. To me, Trevor Lawrence so far has been a C. Like, and part of that's the Jags.
That's the problem. This is a tough grade because I think we do hold his prospect pedigree against him a little bit. Like, this guy was supposed to be John Elway, Andrew Luck, and he just hasn't been. Has he been a functional, good quarterback? Yeah, but he has not been what we expected by any means. I'm gonna go B-. I think he's been above average, and I can't sit here and say just because he's not the Joe Namath we thought he would be as a prospect that he's just average guy, run of the mill Joe. I think he's been okay. He's been above average, but B-. I can't get higher than that. There's something just that it hasn't clicked for him and the Jaguars, and he hasn't been what we expected him to be. And so in that way, he's been a little bit disappointing, but certainly not like, I don't think below average, just kind of lukewarm on.
Yeah, but Frank, think about it. Like, the Jags haven't even decided if they're picking up the 5th-year option. Like, that screams average. Like, yeah, I hear you.
Disappointing. It's been really disappointing.
Like, B- just feels a little generous to me in the sense that the organizations, I'm not even talking about the games. And I think it's fair to say, everybody says, look at the playoff comeback. Okay, well, let's watch the first half of that playoff game and remind everybody why they needed to have a comeback in the first place. So you've got a quarterback that came out last year and said, it looked like we didn't even practice this week. You've got a quarterback that has had some boneheaded interceptions that I can't make sense. And through all of it, I'm sitting here saying you've got an organization that sees him every day in practice, that sees him every day in the games, that sees him in every day in every possible way, that hasn't come out and said anything definitive about the 5th-year option. That to me says they're still waiting for him to prove that he's worth that. And if we're at that stage with the number 1 overall pick, I mean, I'll give you the B-. I'm just saying the B- feels a little generous. It feels like there's it feels like there's a little brand bias on the B-. That's hard for me to say because of what we like. I have a hard time believing that Trevor Lawrence can't be a great quarterback in the NFL. So I have a hard time believing that he doesn't break through this year. But I also have to acknowledge that he hasn't broken through so far.
It's really strange because, we talk about the draft, like, guys bust all the time. But guys of this caliber, you go back, Mel Kiper put out a list of like his top 20 prospects of all time, basically. And Mel Kiper does great draft work. I love Mel and the stuff he does. And if you look at that top 20 list, and Trevor, I think, was on there, every guy was a hit or something weird. Like maybe there was an injury that happened, or maybe they were just good, not great. But there were very, very few busts on that list. When you get to be a prospect of Trevor Lawrence's stature, very rarely you just miss. And it's possible that he misses. I'm not throwing in the towel yet on him, but it's like you said, there's a lot more questions than I thought there would be right now.
So I'm just going to say this, make this sweeping statement. You tell me if you disagree with any of these. Zach Wilson, Trey Lance, Justin Fields, Mac Jones, and even the next year and Kenny Pickett. I'm giving them all an F for what they were for their teams in the draft, where they went, all of them an F.
I'm giving Justin, yes, of course, but Fields I got to pump up a little bit. Yes, they traded him for nothing, but that was a weird circumstance where they happened to be with the first pick and a really, really good uber prospect of Caleb Williams. I like Fields. Look, did he become a passer that we thought he'd be? No, but he really, really good runner. They ended up playing pretty well late last season with him. He was not a total zero. And I think they would, if they didn't have the first pick of the draft and have a shot at Caleb Williams, I don't think they would be talking about drafting Bo Nix or something like that. I think they'd be like, we can make this work with Justin Fields. So I'd give him, I'd even go as high, C minus, D plus. I don't think he was terrible. I really don't. I'm the last member of the Justin Fields fan club over here. I still think he could be a decent NFL quarterback, even with his limitations as a passer, because he's so dynamic as a runner.
All right, so I'll give you a D on it. We meet in the middle on it. I went F, sure. You went C, C minus. I'll give you there. Really hard for last year's draft class to give any sort of a grade. So I think it's probably CJ Stroud right now looks like an A. But I don't want to trash Bryce, and I don't want to say anything yet on Anthony Richardson.
Yeah, Anthony Richardson. I was just having a conversation with a buddy about this. Like, when Anthony Richardson played last year, he was really good. Like, really good. He barely played. It seems like he played like 7 snaps all season. But when he played, it was like, whoa, this guy's good. Like, he might be Cam Newton. Like that. It's such a lazy comparison, but you look at him and you're like, this guy looks like Cam. Like, and I love Cam. Cam's one of my favorite quarterbacks of all time. I just love watching him. So, yeah, we need to go incomplete, probably, at least on Richardson. Bryce didn't do much his first year, but whatever. He was just so unfortunate for him that he played on a terrible, terrible team, and that the guy drafted number 2 had maybe the greatest rookie season of all time for a quarterback. I mean, it's hard for you give anything but a really, really bad grade for Bryce Young, but I don't want to do that yet because it's just such a small sample size for Bryce in a really, really bad situation.
So basically what we've ended up with here is a 5-year period, not including last year. So we're ending this before last year, which I think is fair. And I'm going to take out the pluses and minuses for 1 second, just give us sort of the range of where we ended up in so that we see who worked, who didn't work over this 5-year period. And this is where it gets pretty stunning because over that 5-year period, we have given out 3 A's, some variants of 3 A's. Again, those 3 A's, Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow. Those are the only 3 A's we've given out over that 5-year period. We gave out 4 B's, 2 C's, 2 D's, and 7 F's.
That's crazy. Wow.
Like, everybody's sitting there telling me that this year's draft is going to be a draft of saviors, and maybe it is. Maybe this year's draft is 2020 all over again. I hope to hell it is, because my favorite team desperately needs a quarterback. So what I want is 6 quarterbacks to be drafted in the first round, and it turns out to be 6 Hall of Famers. But if you look at these numbers over the period of it, most likely is you got one guy that's going to work out, a couple of guys that are going to be pretty good if everything's great, and the rest is going to be some version of hot garbage that's thrown off their team in the next few years, Frank. Like, that's the real of what we're actually facing on Thursday. I still watch, and everybody should hang out with us, but that's the real of what we're actually facing on Thursday night.
It's tough to evaluate quarterbacks because it's not just the quarterback. Sometimes it's just the situation around him. Look at Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield, it looked like he was absolutely positively done as an NFL quarterback, and then he had a career season last year with the Buccaneers, and they win a division with him. Bad division, but they won the division. Guys get hurt, or things just happen out of quarterbacks' control. And sometimes we just misevaluate quarterbacks. Like, sometimes we just, NFL teams, they think these guys are going to be great. Trevor Lawrence, and he's just not. Like, so very, very hard. Is quarterback the hardest position to evaluate? It probably is. Just, and also because we pay so much attention to it that the misses there just seem to be catastrophic.
But think about this. Again, I'm just being a realist right here. The Bears have never gotten it right in the quarterback the entire history of the organization.
Now, it's crazy.
The Bears right now, I think, have a really good core, and they're a good spot for a quarterback to land. So I'll give them benefit of the doubt that Chicago is not going to mess this quarterback up. There is no proof that we deserve to give that same benefit of the doubt to Washington. There is no proof right now that there's a roster with the Patriots that can make the best of any quarterback that's selected. So Washington and New England look like places that are likely to fail quarterbacks before the quarterback will fail them. Denver's roster is in a massive, complete, total rehaul. We have no idea what their roster looks like. The Raiders, my beloved Raiders, the only constant with that organization is change. I'll say that Minnesota has several pieces that I believe could make them successful for quarterback. So Chicago and Minnesota are places that I think you could tip the cap and say maybe they won't screw it up. Everybody else we're putting in this quarterback conversation is more likely than not to blow it with whoever they bring in.
Yeah, you're not wrong. It's kind of depressing. And I mean, with the Broncos, you can say, well, with Sean Payton, he's going to get the most. But if these like we're hearing about the Broncos moving up and all that, what if part of that is, well, we traded Cortland Sutton and Patrick Surtain. I mean, you're making a bad roster worse by trading up to get the quarterback, and now he comes into a worse situation. So you're right. Like a lot of these landing spots don't look good, but we would have said the same thing about the Cincinnati Bengals in 2020. Like we would have been like, oh God, Joe Burrow's going to Cincy. It can turn around fast. It can turn around very, very fast in the NFL.
All right, so speaking of turning it around, we're going to turn around to some positivity. We're going to go full Scooby-Doo coming up. We'll figure out some of the mysteries of the draft and where the most intrigue happens. Raggy, we'll do all that next. All right, so for everything I've said, and I feel like I've been hard. I'm a draft realist. All right, I'm gonna turn my genie lamp around. All right, I'm gonna go from this darkness to you ain't never got a friend like me by the end of the week, Frank. I get that. There are some good mysteries in this year's draft, and we're trying to figure out some of those mysteries. So let's take a look at them and see if we can rub our crystal balls. And I should say that much differently. We can rub our crystal. Never mind. Don't just leave it in as in. We're going to figure out what the mysteries look like. And let's start with the Commanders. I just mentioned earlier, they're picking it too. We've heard everything from J.J. McCarthy to Jaden Daniels, the Drake May falling. They've made it clear they're not interested in trading, if we believe that. So if I'm rubbing Frank Schwab's head, trying to figure out, look at the crystal ball, what's about to happen. Frank, what do you think happens at 2 with the Commanders?
I thought it was Jaden Daniels all the way. And I do pay attention to the draft odds, as crazy as that market is, right? At BetMGM this past week, Jaden Daniels went from pretty much a near lock to go number 2. And then Drake May comes in and all of a sudden his odds cut less than half. It's very much not a pick 'em yet between those two at BetMGM, but there's a lot of sentiment that Drake May might be the pick there. We've heard J.J. McCarthy's name there. Washington had that really, really weird situation where they decided to bring in 4 quarterback prospects on the same day. I really wonder about the psychology with that. Did they want to see who would react well and who wouldn't? And Jaden Daniels apparently wasn't happy about it. And maybe that affects Washington's draft decisions. I don't know anymore. I think it's going to be Jaden Daniels, but I'm very much up in the air now on what they're going to do. To me, they're a mystery. They're a total mystery. I probably would say Jaden Daniels when I end up sketching out like who I think's going where, but I'm not convinced of that anymore. I don't know if you feel any more secure about what Washington's going to do at 2 than I do.
I don't, and that's why I don't think it's Jaden. Because look, I think it should be Jaden. I think the number 2 pick should be Jaden Daniels.
Yep.
That being said, you can make this really simple, and if you're Washington, you can say nothing, and it still builds up your guy. You can leak things about how much you love Jaden and it builds up your guy. You can do all of these things to build up your guy and build up the hype around the pick. There is so little benefit to Washington to playing any games and having any smoke screens. Again, acquiescing that their GM already came out and said they're not really interested in moving down. Right. No, they're going to take a quarterback. So why is there so much noise? And it's just, I all the years I covered the draft, this will be my 7th draft I've covered. The noise last year for Will Levis, at the time on ESPN, I loudly screamed, don't listen to it. Will Levis is not going in the top 5. I think most of us knew that. This year feels different than that. Most of the time, when you see this wild riser, even Mac Jones a couple of years ago was like, guys, he's not worthy of being a top 5 pick. We knew that. I didn't see Trey Lance coming, but I think most of us knew that. The hard part this year is that I can't figure out what these teams aren't valuing in Drake May. I can't figure out why they're valuing JJ where they are. And I can't figure out why this Jaden thing is becoming so complicated. So I'm sitting here right now saying, I think it should be Jaden. But if it was going to be Jaden, Washington could have simplified this whole process or just stayed quiet. If they're not interested in moving the pick, then there's no gain in playing these games. And if they are interested in moving the pick, there's no gain in telling everybody you're not interested in moving the pick. Like, their communication doesn't make any sense to me, Frank.
Right. And Adam Peters last week, the new GM of the Commanders, came out and said, we really haven't made a final decision. We're going to do that early next week. And whenever I hear that, I always roll my eyes. I'm like, come on, how do you not know? You've been grinding away on this for months. We all have opinions. With them, I think it might be true. I really think that they might be like, all right, let's make our final choice because we don't know yet. That's how weird this situation. Like you said, there's no point in a smoke screen. You're just going to take whoever you want after Caleb. You know, Caleb's going number one. I'm very much intrigued by the whole situation. I will say this, that I think Charles McDonald, our coworker, had a great point because I texted him. I was just curious. I'm like, why is it like, I watched Drake May, watched the tape and read about him and all that kind of stuff. And I'm like, why would this guy be falling? There doesn't seem to be any crazy red flag with him. And C-Mac, being a very, very smart dude, was like, think about it. There's only been one quarterback in this entire draft scenario that's been trashed, that's had criticism. Everybody else is cut. Nobody's really trashed Jaden Daniels or JJ McCarthy or anything like that. He's like, it's that just tells you it's a smokescreen, right? And I'm like, yeah, okay, there you go. That was smart. I don't believe that Drake May's falling at all. And if he does go number 2 to Washington, it wouldn't surprise me. There's a lot to like about Drake May, a guy who 4 months ago, we were talking about maybe he's the number 1 pick. Our guy Nate Tice has him number 1 on his top 50 board. Like, there's a lot to like about Drake May. And I think Washington's probably having the same conversations right now, trying to figure this thing out.
So now you're the Patriots. And I think this is one of the most interesting things we've ever seen in draft history, because you have a team that has for a generation been the absolute mark of how to do business, how to run the draft, how to have your quarterback situation handled, stability. The Patriots have been the mark of stability for a generation. And now they're absolutely anything but, right? We have no idea what they're going to do. And I believe, looking just at their roster, that the Patriots have a shot at being the worst team in the NFL this year. So you're sitting at number 3. You're in a division where you got to compete with Josh Allen, something that they used to say about the Patriots. You got to compete with Brady. You got to compete with Josh Allen in that division. You've got talented teams in that division. You've got talented coaches. You have a new coach. If you're New England and you're Gerard Mayo, do you trade down and just try and rebuild your roster to have a better infrastructure for a quarterback that you can bring in a future year? Or do you take the stab at one of these guys here, whichever one's the best one left at 3, and just trust that you can get the quarterback addressed and then figure out the rest of the team?
I believe that you do not trade this pick. You need a quarterback to win in the NFL. You don't need an elite quarterback necessarily, but you need a good quarterback. You can't have a 0 there. And if you're the New England Patriots, you don't want to be drafting in the top 3 every year. Like, they might next year, but you don't know what's coming in next year's class. In this year's class, Jaden Daniels, Drake May, very good prospects. I'm happy with either one of those guys who falls. You need to start your rebuild at that quarterback position. Yes, you can trade down, get a receiver, get a Malik Neighbors, get some extra picks from a team like Denver, who's really desperate to move up, Minnesota with that extra first-round pick. But it's really, really hard to win in this NFL with a 0 at quarterback. I think both of these prospects we talked about after Caleb, they can be very good quarterbacks. I think the Patriots recognize that. Look, if they trade down, I get it. I understand. You need to restock this roster, which is really, really talent poor. But to me, you just don't pass on one of these quarterbacks to do that. You take your quarterback, you start your rebuild there. You hope that the situation around these quarterbacks isn't so bad that you ruin this quarterback. But to me, the Patriots draft the quarterback. Don't think twice about this. Don't think about trading back. Just get your guy, start your rebuild right there.
So the number one thing I'm doing, if I am any of the teams that needs a quarterback, is I am offering so much that it actually makes the Patriots' knees buckle. Like, if you think there's a crack, if you think there's a crack in the armor of what they want to do, if I'm the Raiders, for example, and Jaden Daniels somehow is sitting there at number 3, if I got to make the type of offer that ESPN mocks for the rest of the time to move up, I'm going to make it. Because if there's any crack in the armor of their want to take a player right there, you have to be aggressive. And especially when you're in the AFC and you're taking on Burrow, Mahomes, and Allen for the next 10, 12, 15 years. You got to be aggressive. If you think your guy is there, if your scouts and your GM think that the guy is there. Now, it's possible that Minnesota, Denver, the Raiders, their top-rated quarterback on the board that would be worth that is already gone. And if he's already off the board, it's not worth it. You don't trade just to trade. But if your scouts are telling you, for example, Jaden Daniels, Drake May is the future. They're telling you Jaden Daniels, Lamar, but a better thrower. Or they're telling you Drake May is a more athletic version of Andrew Luck, whatever. If you believe those comps and you got to go in and give up 4 years of first-round picks, I don't give a damn. Like, I don't care what that number is because Minnesota and Field Yates at ESPN has made it really clear. The belief in league circles is that Minnesota would have to offer an additional first rounder. So you're talking 2 this year and 1 next year to move up to 3 or 4. It's going to take that much ammunition. So if I think that's what Minnesota's going to offer, if I have to do more than that, if I got to make the sort of offer that makes Robert Kraft question whether or not it makes sense, you do it. But minus a Godfather offer, if you're the Patriots, you're absolutely right. You have to have a quarterback. And yes, you can draft like the 49ers did and build your whole roster up and then get a quarterback. Man, you got to get a lot of draft picks right to do it that way. You got to get 1 pick right to give yourself a better chance right now. These quarterbacks are better than next year's as we sit today. I think you're right.
Yeah, do it like the 49ers, draft Brock Purdy in the 7th round. Like, yeah, okay.
Congratulations.
Usually people don't usually bank on their financial plan being hitting the lottery, right? Like, I mean, it's the 49ers, great for them, awesome, but it's just hard to build that way in the NFL. And you want to get your name brand quarterback, and I think the Patriots have a shot to do that here.
What do you do if you're Denver, Minnesota, Vegas? So play this scenario out with me. Denver, Minnesota, Vegas all try to trade up to 3 or 4. They're told no. We're just playing this out. They're told no. No matter what they offer, they can't get up to 4. So now you got these teams picking 11, 12, 13. And likely by then, the top 4 quarterbacks are all off the board. None of them were able to get them. So now all of a sudden, you're looking at Bo Nix and Michael Penix Jr. I've seen some mocks that have them both in the 2nd round. I've seen some mocks that have them both in the middle of the 1st round. So you're sitting there, and all your draft charts are telling you, well, you can't take Penix at 13. You can't take Penix. You can't take Bo Nix at 12. Do you trade down and then hope that things are going to be there, which means you're hoping nobody else trades back up. You're hoping that Seattle doesn't surprise everybody by taking a quarterback. I still think that should be something they should look at. Like you're hoping everybody plays nice the way you projected the board and you can still get your quarterback. Do you take that risk to get more equity, Frank? Or do you just stay where you are, take the heat that comes with overdrafting because it's quarterback and just get your guy, even though there's a chance they might still be there when day 2 starts?
Yeah, to me, going into this draft, we're talking about mystery teams. And every single team you mentioned, huge mystery to me because musical chairs, somebody's getting left out. Like, you're not all getting a quarterback. To me, yes, if you like a guy, let's say you really, really like Michael Penix and you're the Broncos, you don't try to play that game of trading back and hoping he's there because you don't know what the other teams are thinking. Like you talked about Mina and laughing at the Daniel Jones pick. Everybody killed that for drafting him 6. The Giants, I've always maintained, they also had the 17th pick that year. The Giants had no idea what teams 7 through 16 were thinking. None. We're surprised at the draft every single year. And if you are sold on one of those guys, if you think Michael Penix, we like what he does. We like the arm strength. We're good with the medicals. We've seen what he's done on film. We like Michael Penix. You draft your guy. You don't worry about what the rest of the league is going to think or how you're going to get criticized or what trade value charts or what. No, get your guy. Don't worry about the criticism. Have a belief that this is the right guy. You don't trade back and play that game. Unless you just think like Bo Nix and Michael Penix are the same guy and who cares who we get at 23 or whatever, then fine. But the crazy thing to me with this draft, the one thing I'm really, really looking forward to seeing on Thursday is which of these teams gets left out. Like, not every team is going to get their quarterback. We're going to be sitting here saying, wow, the Raiders or whoever, I mean, not to bring up the Raiders just for you, but Raiders didn't get anybody. Like they didn't want to pay the piper to go up and get Bo Nix or whatever it's going to be. Or what if the Broncos, like, and now reports out there that Sean Payton wants to mortgage a future for a quarterback, which maybe he does. Do you get the right quarterback? Do you get the one you want? Like, I just think the different competition between these teams to get their quarterback is going to be fascinating to watch on Thursday night, to see what they do, how they do it, what they have to give up. It's really, really interesting to see this kind of gold rush for pretty much JJ McCarthy, right? Like, I mean, after JJ McCarthy goes, I think you do start wondering, what do we really got to trade up to draft Bo Nix? Probably not. So it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with these pocket of teams that need a quarterback, and there's not enough quarterbacks to fill all the spots.
I have never felt this unsure in all the years I've covered the draft of where quarterbacks 5 and 6 are going to go. I mean, they could go in the middle of the first round. They could go in the middle of the second round. I genuinely have no idea. Real quick before we snake draft, Cowboys, you think anything splashy coming for Dallas? Like, I feel like we mentioned Cowboys, more people watch. The Cowboys, anything splashy happening?
The only thing with them that makes them, what are they going to do at running back? They can't be happy with Rico Dowdell. I mean, he's a good, solid player, but if you're a Super Bowl type of team, you can't just be like that. We're fine at running back. This has been a team that has valued running backs in the past, obviously. So what do they do to fix our running back situation? It's not going to happen day one. Like, that's not a day one storyline. It's more of a day 2, maybe even day 3 storyline. But I do believe that the Dallas Cowboys have to come out of this draft with their starting running back. And I don't even know who that is. It's not a great class. So to me, they're a mystery, just to see how they can kind of get their fans feeling good about their offseason again. I don't know if they can even do that, because they set the bar so high with the all-in stuff, and they didn't come through with that, which was kind of just a faux pas by Jerry putting it out there. We're going all in, and then you don't sign anybody. You're going to let down your fan base like that. But can you get your fan base kind of excited again, back on board with a good draft that includes a starting running back? I think that's going to be a really, really big storyline for the Dallas Cowboys. I
totally agree. All right, let's snake as we get out of here. And like I said at the beginning of the show, given the fact that it's hurt my heart, and there's 2 words that every Raiders fan knows you just don't utter to each other until you're really at a level of comfortable with them. I'm going first in this snake draft, even though it's your turn. So I could just walk up to the podium, sadly hand over the Jamarcus Russell worst draft bust of all time. That is my first overall pick for worst draft busts. And then I do it with one single solitary tear dripping down my cheek as I realize what it means, not only for my franchise, but what it means for the hurt I feel towards quarterbacks for an entire generation. It's fine. It's fine, Frank. Put you on the board.
Real quick question. You're at a Raiders game. You're enjoying yourself. Wow. I feel good about it. Somebody walks in to the stadium there, Allegiant, with a Jamarcus Russell number 2 jersey. What is your reaction? Do you just pour beer on him? Do you just kind of have a talk with him? Like, what are you doing, guy? Like, what,
no. Like,
just trying to make everybody mad here. I'm in a good mood. Now you just got me in a bad mood. What are you doing?
No, like, there's a sad, yeah, brother, we've been through this a long time together. That person fell for it. That person bought the jersey afterwards. By the way, for the record, I didn't like the pick when it happened. Okay, go ahead.
Tony Mandarich kind of epitomizes draft busts because of what went around him. Everybody thought he was going to be great. We all remember the Sports Illustrated story, the incredible bulk. But I mean, when you are in a draft with Troy Aikman, Barry Sanders, Deion Sanders, and Derek Thomas, and you end up with Tony Mandarich in the first 5, that is the epitome of a bad draft pick. You could have thrown a dart anywhere and hit a Hall of Famer, but you somehow landed on a guy who was awful as an NFL player. He actually ended up rejuvenating himself a little bit with the Colts, but one with the Packers. He was awful for them. Absolutely has to be one of the biggest draft busts ever. He would have been an easy first pick if not for Jamarcus. And then kind of the other guy who epitomizes draft busts, Ryan Leaf. He's talked often about, he's kind of gone on the circuit of talking about his life and his mistakes and all this kind of stuff. It doesn't change that he was absolutely miserable as an NFL player. And there was chatter of maybe Ryan Leaf should go ahead of Peyton Manning. Like, you could Google that kind of stuff. So Ryan Leaf, Tony Mandarich, I feel pretty good about my 2 and 3 picks there.
Yeah, I know those are great. And Ryan's someone I've actually become friends with over the years. And it's powerful to see the way he's turned around his life, but certainly belongs out of that list. That means I get Johnny Manziel. I mean, we knew Johnny was going to be on here somewhere, right? There's no doubt about Johnny Manziel coming next up for me on the list. And then this one, I'm going to go just like, there's certain draft busts. I'm not even going to go with my team. You would think there was all going to be Raiders here. Miss me with the Sebastian.
You could have done it.
Miss me with the Sebastian Janikowski talk because he ended up scoring a lot of points. No, I remember in high school this moment. Heath Schuler, drafted by Washington. and he couldn't even beat out Gus Frerotte. And remember, like, they drafted Gus in the same draft, and it was weird. And they're like, oh, well, Gus will just be the backup. And Gus was like a 6th round pick or something like that. But Heath Schuler was supposed to be like the second coming. And I just remember, probably because I was in the DC area at the time, the way that entire fan base just lost their minds over Heath Schuler's inability to win the job. And Gus Frerotte sort of became this like local legend until he ran up to the side of the stadium and hit his wall off and like injured his head. Like, it's this whole abject disaster of the Washington football team was all around Heath Schuler. So I put Heath Schuler on my list as so a lot of quarterbacks. I go Jamarcus, I go Johnny Football, and I go Heath Schuler.
I'll stick with the quarterbacks. This one is a little personal because I was sold on the pick. When Andre Ware was putting up these numbers at University of Houston, I was like, this guy's going to be unbelievable. And the Detroit Lions thought the same thing too, because they drafted him 7th. And I was 13 years old at the time, big into football cards, as I think we both were. I had about 8 billion Andre Ware rookie cards. I thought this was going to put me through college one day, right? Like, this is what I need to do to invest. And Andre Ware got 6 NFL starts. It's kind of crazy. Like, in a modern era of the NFL, you would think that a guy who's drafted 7th overall would never get less than 4 or 5 different chances in the NFL. No, Andre Ware played 4 years with one team, got 6 starts, didn't do anything with them, and was basically out of the league and turned into a really, really good broadcaster, by the way. I like Andre Ware. I've talked to him before. He's a real quick story. 1999, I'm covering Ron Dane, covering the University of Wisconsin, doing a story on former Heisman winners. How does your life change when you win a Heisman Trophy? You covered every angle when you cover a Heisman winner. And I tracked down Andre Ware in Houston, Texas. Great. Called him up. I'm like, hey, Andre, I just want to talk to you about how does your life change when you win a Heisman? He's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, 1989, you won Heisman Trophy. He's like, I have no idea what you're talking about. And there was this awkward silence, realizing there's an Andre Ware in Texas who I've called who is not Andre Ware.
Oh my God, that's amazing.
We are having I don't know how to get off the phone at this point. Are you serious? Are you playing a joke on me? There's Andre Ware living in Houston, Texas, who has no idea about the Heisman winner 10 years before. And I ended up getting Andre Ware, I think, through ESPN, and he was great. But yes, that phone calls of all my journalistic career was one of the most memorable ones, because I'm just on the phone with Andre Ware from Houston, Texas, who has no idea what I'm talking about. I'm asking about the Heisman Trophy. I have no idea how I'm going to go with this conversation. I think I just probably hung up quietly, sorry. Yeah.
Wrong Andre. That's amazing. I wonder how many times
wrong Andre Ware in Houston, Texas. Who would have thought it?
That is amazing. Honorable mention, by the way, Todd Marinovich could have easily made my list too. I remember where I was when Todd Marinovich
done six Raiders draft busts. We could have done 60 Raiders draft busts.
Todd Marinovich being drafted instead of Brett Favre. Just let that one sink in.
Yeah,
just let that sink in.
Robert
All right,
Gallery ahead of Calvin Johnson.
Oh my God. Oh God. Yeah, I'm back Thursday. Special draft reaction episode after round 1. Y'all pray for me. Just pray for me, because I'm telling you, if the Raiders just trade 3 times, don't get anybody. I don't know. The Raiders stay at 13 and, take Brock Powers. I don't know what the hell I'm going to do. Okay. Things could get weird, but we're going to have a special reaction video episode right after round 1. You don't want to miss that. Follow us on Twitter at Yahoo Schwab, at Jason Fitz, at SJ Rochelle to get to Stone. Leave us that 5-star review, rate, subscribe, tell your friends, your family, your enemies, tell everybody to hang out with us. Next week's going to be spicy, I'm sure, because we'll have plenty of reaction, and I'll either still be drunk celebrating or I'll still be drunk drinking my misery away. But either way, cheesecake will power us through next week's episode. Thanks for hanging out with us.